liberal bastion, the Upper West Side of New York City. And I don't have the thickest hair, but I won't have any left because I'm pulling it out. I don't think I live in a bubble. I grew up middle class. My parents didn't make much money. I've done okay for myself. But I'm going to pivot just a little bit because when you said Trump is having fun, this is what I don't understand. At whose expense?
Right. Because if everybody else isn't having fun because we need fun equity, Donald Trump and the rest of the nation aren't allowed to have fun because it's every time at somebody else's expense, according to you. This is why you're a miserable person.
I cannot bear the thought of, first of all, why can't he pronounce her name correctly? You think it's a joke? I don't think it's a joke. It's very easy.
What's a joke is that people like you who cannot deal with the idea that, in fact, that there are more important problems in the nation. For example, record inflation, the precipice of World War III, and you're complaining about somebody's name being pronounced that people aren't familiar with.
To say Kamala. And when I see commercials about poisoning the blood, about immigrants who clean toilets and pick lettuce and
because that's what they're supposed to do, according to you. That is the purpose of these immigrants. This is the jobs that they're supposed to have. They're not high-paid computer programmers, doctors. No, they're picking your lettuce.
We wouldn't have vegetables without immigrants.
Right,
but
exactly.
Here's the one I want to focus on. I'm a gay woman. I have a son. I have a wife. I work hard. We love our son. Do you know, in 2011, we got married in New York State. And our son asked us why we weren't married. And we told him because we weren't allowed to get married. And he burst out in tears. He started.
I guarantee you that story is exaggerated. At best, exaggerated, if not completely fabricated.
Started to cry because he didn't understand our family's just like any other family. So
no, not really. I mean, it's fine. I don't mind the fact that two gay women are raising a child, but you're not like every other family. There are differences.
I'm going to ask you about transgender, okay? Because I'm seeing these horrific, and I mean horrific. You say Trump is having fun campaigning?
How dare he?
He is talking about transgender people. I know a few transgender people. They struggle mightily. There's nothing.
They're going to struggle no matter what because they have mental illnesses and they think that the cure is to switch their sex, their gender, however you want to term it. I feel bad for them, but they struggle not because of what everybody else says, but because that's what leads them to want to switch their bodies around.
Being funny about making fun. Maybe people out there don't remember Matthew Shepard 30 years ago strung up because he was a gay man.
Fake news, fake story brought by the media. It was a drug deal gone bad or something. I've delved into it a little. That's my memory.
Or Jodie Foster and all these people having to be in the closet. So yeah, I'm angry because, you don't go to school a man, a boy, and come back a woman. What kind
Actually, you kind of do nowadays.
of cruelty is that? Why is that tolerated? What has happened to our country?
What's not being intolerant? You're the tolerant left.
And one last thing, and then I'm sorry, I just have to get it out.
Now speak.
What do people want from Kamala? I know, ask me. I'll tell you where she stands. I always wonder this.
A modicum of intelligence, perhaps.
If we had flipped the end of 2016 and Joe Biden had inherited Obama's economy, boy, I think there'd be a whole different conversation here. I think that Biden really came in at a time, it was the end of COVID, and he inherited an economy that was just about to be awful. And
because blue states shut the nation down in an effort to remove Trump from office against his instincts, by the way. And he kind of allowed it. He's not completely blameless, but yeah, Trump was much better on the economy than the Democrats, no doubt.
I think Kamala Harris, I just think we're not involved enough to nominate a woman to elect.
I I ain't voting for no woman unless her name is Tulsi Gabbard. Definitely nobody named Kamala or Kamalat, however you pronounce it.
A woman. I really do believe that. I look at all the countries. I think of all of the leaders around the world who are women, and I just think America is not really that evolved.
We're not
I'm sorry
that
I'm
involved.
rambling, but I'm angry. I'm really angry.
I'm angry
Nancy,
because
we're
I'm a
very glad-
leftist. I'm always
we're
angry.
glad we're here, and as Dan says, you speak for millions.
How,
I wanna
and as a gay woman, this
Yeah.
is what I want to say.
Oh, my
I believe
identity.
that if Trump is elected, there's a good chance that in my opinion, horrific criminals, Alito,
They're
Clarence
criminals.
Thomas
Alito,
with his
Clarence Thomas, horrific
ginormous
criminals.
bus worth hundreds of thousands of dollars that was gifted to him, will resign and will get a Supreme Court that will overturn same-sex marriage. It will go back to the states, just the way abortion did.
Everything should be left to the states. This is a positive thing where we don't have centralized control. The United States are the United States, thus an experiment in democracy, each and of their own 50.
Just the way abortion went back to the states. And you know what happened when abortion went back to, nobody wanted abortion to go back to the states.
Yeah, a lot of people did, dumb.
Women are suffering abortion. And I'd like to say to the previous person on, it's not about when you have an abortion, it's women's health. I knew a woman who had cancer, okay? She had cancer in the 6 months of her pregnancy, and she needed to have an abortion. Do you realize if she lived in Louisiana today, what would happen?
She could have gone across state lines.
What would happen to her?
Nancy, very grateful.
Okay, I'll stop.
No. I want to say one thing, then I want to ask you a question, okay?
Go.
Those of you in the chat who are mocking Nancy, I'm going to ask you again. In a couple weeks, your candidate might win and hers might lose. And she, as Dan said, represents tens of millions of Americans. You should aspire to live in a country where you have not just the presumption of grace towards Nancy, but you understand why she feels so strongly about these things. I've spent 10 years trying to convince people in Nancy's position to try to understand why Donald Trump has support. And Nancy, I would ask you to do that.
I'm going to go through this all at the end of this video as a former Democrat and explain a few things to Mr. Mark Halperin, who actually I respect.
Because he might win, and you should understand why, and not just say blame it on Justice Alito. Just hold on.
Can I say one last thing? Because I'm a New Yorker. One last thing.
Sure.
Guess where I grew up? I'm going to give you a hint. It sounds like it begins with a Q and ends with an S.
Ooh, so hard to figure out.
I grew up in Queens, New York, about 3 miles from Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I'm 68 years old. I just want to say one thing to all the people, like scrolling right now. We knew back then when Trump was redlining and keeping Black people out of rentals, what that family was about. It's just, okay.
Everybody's racist.
Okay. All right, Nancy, I'm going to ask you one question, then Tricia is, and then Dan.
Okay.
You said you can explain where she stands on a position. So I'm going to ask you about something. I'm going to ask you something, and she hasn't answered it, and it's a little bit sensitive. So I'm going to try to phrase it as carefully well as I can.
Nothing will offend me at this point.
No, I know. I'm not worried about offending you. I'm worried about, inciting a riot here. She previously supported taxpayer-funded trans operations for illegal immigrants. Is that something that you think is right for the government to pay for?
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So did Donald Trump. It's all part of the Trump platform. No,
it's not part of the Trump platform. Not one bit. But note that they deflect everything. Orange man bad.
But Nancy, no, listen to me. Today,
listen to me,
whatever pervaded under his administration, today he would say he opposes that. He would forthrightly say, I'm not for that.
He opposed it before as well.
Now, you may say that's hypocritical because the law when he was president would have allowed it. But he would say he's for it. Is she for it? Or he'd say he's against it. Is she for that or not?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Of course you do. She stated it. I don't care. I don't care because it's orange man bad, you see, and my candidate might have worse, but I'm not going to pretend not to see them because he's orange.
Little tricks that they play.
Oh, it's a trick, is it?
If there are 3 a year, okay,
I don't care. But Nancy, here's why it's not a trick. Here's why it's not a trick, okay? The Trump campaign has spent tens of millions of dollars on ads on this topic.
That's correct.
And it's not something that tens of millions of Americans support. and she won't say where she stands on it. And you said you could say you could answer where she stood on anything, and you can't say where she stands on this.
Okay, all right, let's give you that one. I can't say where she stands on that.
Yeah.
But that is a grain of sand in a beach of
No,
issues.
well, it depends on how big you make the beach. But for the American people, taxpayer money to pay for any health care for illegal immigrants, for a lot of Americans, that alone is offensive.
All right, I don't
Of course it is. They aren't playing as part of the system. They come here illegally and get our money.
agree.
I know you don't
do
agree.
not support
I know
it.
you don't.
I don't support it.
You
I
don't
don't
support what?
it.
You don't
I don't
support
support taxpayer money
Okay.
for
You
transgender
don't.
surgery.
You don't.
But
You don't.
that
And
would-
it took you a while to say it. But you know who
Okay, but
still hasn't
hear me
said where
out.
she stands? Kamala Harris.
But that given the overwhelming number of issues would not even be close to being a deal breaker. And I also think
It is. It turns out to be for a lot of people.
Have sexually transmitted crazy mouth. Deal breaker.
I told you, I know this woman. She's the one that yelled and screamed at all of us to get vaccinated, to get the COVID jab, and then complained to the flight attendant that our 3-year-old children did not have their mask completely over their nose.
No. Come here, baby.
She's the one who invariably stated that people who were fired from their jobs for refusing to take the COVID jab that didn't stop transmission deserved it, and good riddance. She's the one who applauded Black Lives Matter while they burned down small businesses, assaulted police, and screams racial justice and cheers on the hiring of individuals to prominent positions in the government, like vice president, for example, based on their gender and race. And now we're seeing how that DEI candidate is playing out.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years, you were vice president, not the president, but why wasn't any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
She's my friend who dropped a 20-year relationship for me being critical of Antifa and praising Donald Trump's Abraham Accords and the relative peace that he managed to bring to the Middle East. She's the one who's yelling about Trump being a danger to the world, despite the fact that under Trump, we had no new wars, and under Harris, we have the near precipitation of World War III. She's the person that relies on me to change her flat tire on her car while she calls me ignorant. She's the one who's yelling justice for Jussie Smollett and then claims that Trump is a racist for claiming that there were fine people on both sides, even the white supremacists.
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
She's the unattractive woman that supports body positivity. And you can eat whatever you want and be healthy at any weight because it makes her feel better about herself. She is the abnormal, mentally unhealthy person that shrieks and demands that we comply and follow in line with her, and that we cannot be happy if everyone else is not. And she brings the whole equity notion down by herself to her level. She's the one that applauds when they remove AP math classes from schools, that which actually uplifts gifted children who are in lesser economic situations. This is the person, everything is wrong with America. And Mark Halperin tells us that we should have compassion for her when she has no compassion for us, when she drives us crazy, when she's the authoritarian that claims that Trump is the authoritarian who wants our freedoms to be maintained, while Kamala Harris wants freedom of speech to dissipate, so that I would be criticized of hate speech and arrested for having made fun of her and mocked her. This is the type of person that needs to seek mental counseling immediately. Go on a nice trip, jump in the ocean, touch grass, and realize that life can be really good, but you're the one who is bringing it down. Let me know what you think in the comments. Peace.